Hello, welcome to Global Lives. Today we'll talk about international schools in Portugal. I don't know if you're aware, but according to the latest data from the Portuguese Border Service, there are over 7,000 US citizens and about 42,000 Brits living in Portugal. So as you can see, Portugal is a country that is fast growing in popularity with families relocating to Europe. And to assist these families with the very difficult task of relocating to a new country, Global Citizen Solutions is launching a guide, which is right here in front of me, of the best international schools in continental Portugal and the islands. It was researched and published in partnership with local real estate buyers agent Goldcrest. So the guide shares advice from educators and insightful real estate information regarding school areas. But to help us understanding the ABCs of international school curriculum, we have an A team with us today. So Nathalie Willis-Davis, founder and education consultant at Tendoria, and Martin Harris, the principal at the International School, the Lisboan. Also joining us is Patricia Casabori, Managing Director of Global Citizen Solutions. She will also share her own experience of finding an international school in Portugal for her son. But before we start, let me guide you through the next steps. So the first part will be an informal conversation between us, and we will cover the launch of the Global Citizen Solutions International School Guide, and have a nuanced look over international schools in the country, and also learn a bit more about all the international curriculum available here. This will be followed by a Q&A where you can ask anything you want directly to the guests. And overall, this should take altogether, it should take about 40 minutes to get you through this live. Additionally, you can contact a member of our staff. They will be available on our chat. And if you are watching us live from Facebook, LinkedIn, and also YouTube, feel free to jot down your questions there. If you have to go and we're not able to answer all these questions, do not worry. Once we publish the live, we will be able to answer your questions through the comment section. So we are just about to start. So let me see here. Patricia, Martin, and Nathalie. Nice to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Giselle.
Fantastic. So we will learn a lot about schools here. So I feel like I'm back in the school seat again. But let me start. Let me start with Patricia, because I think it would be very interesting to learn about the inspiration and why Global Citizen Solutions has created this guide. But before we start, I think it's important to set the tone. There are some very interesting awards under Portugal's belt with regards to education. So Portugal's ranked worldwide. I'm going to have to read this, guys, because a lot of information. So Portugal is ranked on the 24th position for 2022 Best Countries for Education report. It also has a high English speaking rate, ranking 7th in the 2021 Education First English Proficiency, and the 6th position in the 2022 Global Peace Index. So this has reflected in 51, obviously with the demand of people coming to live in Portugal, now we have 51 schools, international schools all over the country. Patricia, now on you. Tell us, what were the driving factors to start an international school guide?
Right. First of all, thanks for hosting this live, Giselle, and having us. Well, we are very much so talking to international clients and people looking to move, or just in different stages of the process to relocation to Portugal. And the very first thing for people that have kids in school age or considering to have a family in the near future, I would actually go out and say it. It's probably the most important factor when picking a place to be. And part of the consultancy and the service that we aim to provide, which is 360 full circle with art, this was a very key part of the puzzle. Obviously, there's a lot of information out there. We've had articles with listings and everything else. But we tried with this guide to go a little bit beyond, which is also helping people to understand the Portuguese kind of ecosystem, educational system, and how that all fits in with global families that they might be here in Lisbon for 2 years, 1 year, or they might be coming, for the long haul. But some of them still would hope that their kids might go home one day for university. So we'll just try to put as much as possible, like comprehensive information to get people navigate. For us, in particular, actually, this school expedited our move here. We had visited a few schools that we thought it would kind of give a little bit of an extension of the schooling system that our son was in back in London. It is competitive at the moment here, and so we put his name down, and when we got a place, even though we're not quite ready to move, we just decided to kind of jump in. And so it is very crucial to kind of narrow it down and do the work, and knowing what the schools are will totally guide where you want to live. So that's right.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Relocating is daunting anyway, and then when on the top of it, you also need to find a school, which, as you said, it's a very important decision for family. It's good to have somewhere to start, to have a guide that can put together at least some information about what the schools in the country are offering. So before we dive into the schools, I want to have like a personal overview of your own challenges, what you have to go through when you looked for international school in Portugal. But just you have given us a candid view of what you had to do, what you went through with your son. But Nathalie and Martin, I don't know if you had to look for an international school as well. Do you want to start?
I wouldn't want to jump in front of Nathalie, but yes. I think that it can be a really daunting prospect for anyone who's moving to a new city. Exactly as Patricia said, you've got so many things on your plate, but yet I think as parents we instinctively all know that we must sort out our children first, or one of the first things we need to do. And the trouble is, schools, you tend to hear about schools via two ways: word of mouth. People that you meet at a dinner party, barbecue, in a supermarket, via friends. And word of mouth can be useful to opening a few doors, but not necessarily really useful. And then the school websites, and they can be a minefield, because every school speaks probably on their websites about similar things. And it's not until you actually get to the school that you really truly find what the school's about. So I think it is a really tricky time for parents, which is why a guide sort of helps sort out some of those things. Because to me, the first thing I would say to any parent is, when you're looking for a school, you must look at the values and make sure that they align with your values as a family and as an individual in what you're looking for, and not just go because someone told you it was a great school. So those are the first things. And I think, that's a challenge. And I think it's also in Lisbon, trying to fit in with family life, because convenience and logistics also play a big part in where you're going to live and where your children's school is going to be.
Yes, definitely. And I see a lot of when you say when talk about word of mouth, I see that Facebook groups also very helpful, and there's lots of questions from parents about particular school and if anyone is happy, because people are mostly looking at the happiness of their child, not only school credentials. And so that was great, Martin. Thank you very much. How about you, Nathalie? What was your experience when you education consultant? So I guess was it a difficult experience for you to find schools in Portugal?
Well, I have to say that the families that are moving over now are very lucky, because one of my main frustrations was that there wasn't a list of international schools, and I didn't know about the Facebook groups. One of my frustrations was that I was trying to come up with a list, and I was worried that I'd missed the school, which was the right one for us. So that was one of the difficulties. And the other thing, I'm echoing what Martin mentioned, which is I didn't have any insider knowledge. So I didn't really know what a school was like on a day-to-day basis. That's sort of the information that I try to provide my clients, because I feel like that's very important to get a good sense of what it's really like at a school.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's very good, and thank you. It was a very thorough explanation, and I think before it would be good for our viewers to get to know more about our guests, Martin and Nathalie. So I'm going to throw some questions that they can understand a bit more about you. But before, I will address some of the comments here. So I can see that our team has already been answering, but we got one from Augusto asking if this live is covering universities too, or only schools. Yes, Augusto, this time it's only schools, but who knows, maybe there is here an idea for another guide. But yes, please keep jotting down your questions there and comments. Now, let me go, Martin, I'll ask you a question. What are the challenges of setting up a school abroad?
Gosh, where do I start, Suzanne? I have to say, there are lots of lovely challenges, and I've been ahead for 18 years, and being handed a blank sheet of paper, or pretty much a blank sheet of paper, by my employers, Artemis Education, who are a small international group of schools, British based. Currently, we've got one school in Qatar, and the Lisboan is going to be the second school in that group. So it's a really small group, but each school is going to be different. And they handed me a blank piece of paper, which can be daunting from one angle, but really exciting from another. And so I scribbled down all my aspirations that I would want for a child in the 21st century, heading into the middle of the 21st century. Is what we've done over the last 50 years the right thing for these children, or do we need to sort of keep some things and tweak it? So there was matching my aspirations and ambitions for a school with what does Lisbon want? What does the international community in Lisbon want? And so being able to sort of match those two has been the most fulfilling and exciting process so far, and I'm still very much in the middle of it. There's a couple of sort of practical challenges, Gisèle. I think getting to know how Portugal works. I've been working with a great set of architects, getting to know how the builders work, all the local requirements. Some of them are the same as the UK, and there's unique ones, and that's part of having this sort of growth mindset and looking outwards, which we want for the children as well. So I've got to lead the way, and I think probably the most important thing and the greatest challenge is getting the right staff in, because I've got to staff from the word go and appoint every last member of staff, from the security guard to my deputy heads. So and that's exciting. And I don't know if any of you play sort of fantasy sports teams where you can put together your greatest football team or your greatest baseball team or whatever. I'm playing in a sort of form of fantasy education, because I'm able to take the best from around the world and put them together here, which is just amazing. And so, yeah, and that's a challenge. You have to create time. You have to reach out to these people and find them. And me, just finally, personally, the greatest challenge has been learning Portuguese. I'm going to do it. I'm going to lead from the front. because I want to breed lifelong learners. So I've got to lead the way, and I am determined that I'm going to learn Portuguese. It hasn't been quite as easy as I thought it was going to be.
I was just going to ask after, how is it going? Are you able to order something in Portuguese from a cafe, perhaps?
Yeah, but please don't ask me to now speak in Portuguese. Can we do that in a couple of months' time?
Everything is said in Portuguese again, Martin.
Next conversation.
Yeah. I don't want to test the teacher here.
Oh, I think I've got to go, Giselle.
So just before I ask Nathalie, the Lisboan is opening in September 2023, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
correct.
Good luck, Martin.
And we're funny enough, we are, when we originally designed the school, we thought we'd do exactly the same as every other school, which is the logical way to open, which is from sort of the bottom of the school to about 12 or 13. And then every year you add on another year group. And it's easy to manage that, it's easy to staff that, and it's easy to budget for that. But when I arrived last year in Lisbon, it became obvious quite quickly that there's a real shortage of particularly 15 to 18 places in schools, in international schools, I think even in some of the local Portuguese schools around here. And so I asked my employers if we could go all the way through. And of course, it's more expensive to begin with, but they were very supportive. And so actually we're opening 3 to 18 straight away. Well, 3 to 17 straight away.
Wow, amazing. Can't wait to see it. And if it serves as, how to say, incentive to you, I have a comment here from Audrey saying, amazing that you are determined to learn Portuguese. Parabéns. You won't be so hard. Smiley face.
Thank you. Obrigado.
It's coming along. Cool. Thanks, Martin. Nathalie, you have contributed to with Global Citizen Solutions International School Guide, and can you tell us a bit about you and your consultancy service, Tendoria?
Yeah, so my goal really at Tendoria is to help families find the right school for their children here in Portugal. So as I mentioned, I understand how challenging this can be, given my personal experience as an expat here. We moved over to Cascais from London 3 years ago, and I have 2 school-age children. So my view is that access to the right information is key in any decision-making process. So I really provide the insights that those families need to make the best possible school choice. And I really see myself as their trusted advisor on the ground who can guide them to the right curriculum and the right school. And I really take every client's case, so to speak, personally, and I develop relationships with them. So I'm actually in a very privileged position because I get to meet many families from all over the world, and everyone has a different story, different things you're looking for in school. So it's actually wonderful to be able to speak to so many different people.
That's great. And you also speak Portuguese, Nathalie?
Well, I speak Portuñol. I speak Spanish fluently, and so now I speak mainly Spanish with some Portuguese words added, and a little bit more of a Portuguese accent. But yes, it's mainly Spanish.
Oh, that's good. But it gives you a head start when you speak and you have.
I can have conversations with people, and I think they understand me. They probably, they're laughing inside because I probably sound like a 3-year-old. But that's okay. At this point in my life, I don't mind embarrassing myself.
Best outlook in life. I like it.
Okay, nice, guys. So let's so moving ahead, I will invite Nathalie and Martin to play a game. So we're basically here it's kind of a game that we've started playing every live when we know the answer will be too long, and we just want to break the flow and get more a bit more of a dynamic answer here. So we will talk about international curriculums, and also learn that the plural of curriculums is curricula. but I just don't know how you pronounce it in English. I used to say curriculums. I'm sorry, because I'm speaking to a teacher here, so I feel like I should really give my best on my
It's
English.
perfect.
Thanks, Martin. Right, so I will ask each of you, Martin and Nathalie, to explain the denominations and meanings behind each school curriculum. So the IB, the French, the American, British, and I will also ask Montessori. And then at the end, I will give examples, a few examples of family walks of life, and then you tell me which curriculum would suit best, which style would suit best this family. Okay, so you guys ready?
Ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let's start. Shall I start with Martin or Nathalie?
Ladies first.
Ladies first. Okay. So Nathalie, give me. I'll give you the French, the American, and the Montessori curriculum.
Okay, let's start with the American. So funny enough, an American curriculum per se doesn't exist. So as the United States doesn't have a set national curriculum as other countries do. So each state develops its own curriculum. So what is a US style curriculum? Let's call it that way. It's a broad, generalized education which encompasses a wide variety of subjects throughout. So all the way up until 12th grade, which is the last grade. It has a core curriculum of subjects that prepare students to enter schools, colleges, and universities in the United States, mainly. And it culminates in a high school diploma, which is based on the accumulation of credits. So it's not a national exam-based system like the ones that many European countries have. So that's the main differentiator there. So speaking of which, the French curriculum, it's very popular actually among expats, not only in Portugal, but around the world, because there's such a large network of French schools around the globe. So apparently, we have Napoleon Bonaparte to thank for that, a little history there. He's credited with reforming the French education system in the 1800s, and these reforms included the creation of these elite secondary schools, which are called lycées. And nowadays, French lycée is, it kind of refers to the whole school, so the throughout from age 3 to 18, but initially it referred to the secondary. So the French curriculum, and I'm a product of the French curriculum, it's fairly rigorous and exam-based. So students sit national exams in order to obtain the French National Brevet Diploma in 9th grade. So that's both an assessment and a certification of the knowledge and skills acquired at the end of middle school. After that, the students can follow one of 3 tracks. So either you do literature, economics and social studies, or sciences and math. And basically that means that, for example, in sciences and math, you would have many more hours of math, physics, biology, etc. during the week than someone who did literature. So as someone who's doing the literature stream, I believe that even those last 2 years, they don't have biology, physics, or chemistry, and they focus more on philosophy courses and literature. And those students then graduate with the French baccalaureate, which is an extensive national exam taken at the end of 12th grade. In fact, given how rigorous it is, many universities in the US and Canada give a semester or more of credit based on these results. And I actually got a semester credit when I went to college. So it's great to have. And then to finish on a completely different tack, Montessori. So when one thinks of Montessori, one usually thinks of young children. However, the Montessori curriculum does cater to children up to age 18. The Montessori method was developed by Dr. Maria Montessori in the early 1900s. It's a specific child-centered method of education that involves 3 main aspects. So the first one is it's focused on child-led activities. So the child is, in the morning, it is walks into the classroom, which is called a prepared environment. So the teacher was called a guide, thinks about how to set up different areas in the classroom. And the child is given the opportunity to choose an area in which he or she will throughout the day. They then move to different areas throughout the day. The second aspect of Montessori is that classrooms are filled with children of varying ages. So usually you have a classroom with children aged 3 to 6, another classroom with children aged 6 to 9, and a third with children aged 9 to 12. And the idea here is that children can help each other and they learn from that type of experience. And the third aspect of Montessori is, as I mentioned, that the teachers, they're called guides, they're not teachers, because they're there to help the children really kind of develop their own, the skills that they're most interested in, or their interests. And these guides really encourage this independence in the pupils. In Portugal, these pure Montessori schools currently go only up to age 12.
I see.
So,
and then after 12, then it will be sort of a...
Either they go to international school, or they go to a Portuguese school. Depending on, some Montessori schools are English language based, and others are Portuguese language.
Okay, I see. Wow, Nathalie, thank you. That was very, very thorough. I did not know that it was Napoleon Bonaparte that brought the French curriculum to such popularity. I love learning new things, and yes, I do remember watching recently a documentary about Marie Montessori on Netflix. So all the scenes of this documentary came as you started talking about the curriculum. Good. So let's move on now to the IB and the British. Martin, first of all, it's International Baccalaureate, correct?
Correct. Yeah. But as you said, it's known worldwide as the IB.
Okay.
Split into 3 different areas. I think most people know it for the diploma, which has been going for a long time for 16 to 18-year-olds. I'll come to that in a moment, if I may. There's the primary years program, which is down at the bottom of the school, 5 to 11. The middle years program from 11 to 16, and then the diploma. And recently added to that has been the careers program from 16 to 18. To me, one of the greatest strengths of the IB is the holistic approach that it takes to education. And it gives children such a fantastic all-round approach to learning. And I think the fact that it encourages outward-looking, curious, open-minded pupils is great. But I think it's that preparation for life. And I think I mentioned earlier, when I had my famous blank piece of paper, how would you build a school? And you write down your ideal sort of values that you want for the children in there. I'm not saying mine was identical to the IB, but it was the closest aligned to it, particularly at the top of the school. So I think it's a wonderful launch pad out into the world. It's not perfect, but it's gaining traction, I would say, faster than most other. I haven't got the stats to back that up, but I sense that the IB is gaining traction faster than any other curricula at the moment around the world. So that's the IB.
Okay.
And then the British curriculum, I guess, is the granddaddy of curricula. It's the well understood because it's pretty much been the same or similar for a long time. And that has good aspects because it's well understood by most. And so the standards that it sets are clear and well understood. I won't say that it hasn't changed over the recent past. It is trying to adapt. But I think one of my biggest gripes, and probably back in the UK, one of the biggest worries, has become the ever-increasing testing regime that surrounds the British curriculum and clearing hurdles at each stage. The 2 that most people know, of course, are at 16, the GCSEs, and at 18, the A-levels, which are the sort of, as I said, the old-fashioned ways of transferring on from middle years education into the top, and then on to universities through A levels. I don't know how much detail you want me to go, but yeah, that's a very quick run through IB and British curriculum.
No, I think that's great. And then if we have more questions, obviously our viewers will ask, and you're able to clarify any further detail in the Q&A. So now let's go to, there are also some comments here. International Baccalaureate is the best high school curriculum. Great. Okay.
Well, I think people feel that, and I wouldn't argue against it, because it's just so well balanced.
Yeah.
It gives pupils just such a great balanced view at 16, which a lot of people, particularly in education, will say it's just too young to start specializing too deeply.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I would like to ask a quick question, actually, because I actually get asked that a fair amount, and I don't know the answer enough. And I said, I'll get back to you. So it'll be interesting. The dynamic, especially for British families or European families moving here, but particularly the British ones, often in Portugal, to a certain degree, these schools replicate, up until which year they go. So usually most schools stop in middle school and then to go. When you're moving, let's say if they're not going to the Lisboan all their lives, and they do, the school finishes at year 6, or even when they're 11, which is, yes, year 6, right? When they're 11, that they have to do the 11 plus. Does that happen on an international kind of setting? So here, if they're in a school that finishes at 11, when they're going into another school, would they have to sit a test? Or when they're coming from abroad, do they have to do any kind of pre-entry exam?
It's entirely up to the individual schools, Patricia. I think I don't know of any schools here that are doing that, but then I haven't asked that specific question. I think it's very harsh to ask children to move schools and to take a test. I will do that for the older children, but only because I would love to see, can they access the curriculum when they're going on to GCSEs, and particularly for the IB, not to try and catch them out or to try and trip them up, but just to see if they're suitable for those particular courses. I don't think there's any ground to be gained in testing at 11. The old-fashioned schools in England, and I just saw today that the new Prime Minister has announced that he's going to develop grammar schools again. So to get into the grammar schools, that was why we had testing at 11. It pretty much died out in most parts of the UK, not entirely, particularly not in London. But it sounds as though they're going to come back. I'm pre-guessing what he said, but I guess that's the way forward. It was really a stepping stone onto grammar schools and a divider at 11. There's a lot of educationists who would say 11 is too early to start judging how a pupil is going to be when they're 15 or 18.
Okay.
I agree with Martin that the schools here, there isn't the equivalent of, let's say, the 11 or 13 plus that they have in the UK, which are very intense exams, entry exams. But several schools here do assess students, so they do have a sort of entrance exam, but it's very, you don't have to study for it. It's just more to understand their level. It's usually in maths and in English, more to understand their level so that they can then be placed in the right groups. So again, it's not to catch them out, like Martin said.
Nathalie, I think, Patricia, the other thing I would say about testing a child at 11, particularly in an international environment, is what language are you going to use? Particularly, so let's say I'm doing setting a test in English. Is that fair for someone who's come from a non-English speaking background? They're at age 11, their access to the language might not be as well developed as, say, a 15 or 16-year-old.
Okay.
That's perfect. I think our families will be very happy to learn that.
No, thanks for sharing this information with us. It will be definitely helpful. Now, sorry, we need to move on because we've been speaking for over 36 minutes and we've got some very interesting questions here. So now I will give you examples of families, and then you, Martin and Natalie, tell me what you think. What would be the best method for them? So let's think of an American family moving to Portugal with kids in early school years and looking to move to another country in 1 or 2 years. What do you think would be the best option?
Shall I go first, Natalie, or do you want to go?
Go ahead. You can go this time.
I think, Giselle, the key factor for me is because they're young, I would say to parents, don't worry, don't get wrapped up in curriculum at this stage. Make sure the school is the right school for you, your children and the family. The children are very adaptable at that age. And while you don't want to be chopping and changing for the whole of their school career, if they're young, it doesn't really matter. Just get the right school and the right field.
Okay.
I agree with Martin that finding the right school is definitely more important than just making a decision based on curriculum. But if the family was moving back to the US in the very near term, I would still recommend choosing a school that is American curriculum based, just so that it's a smoother transition on the way in and then back out to the US. But yes, assuming that the American school and a British or IB curriculum school are of the same quality.
Okay, good. So now moving on. A family, I'll just give a country here because it's just based on the requirements and the inquiries that we have from our clients. Yeah, a family from India with children in middle school, hoping that they will attend university at either the UK or the US.
Should I start this time?
Yeah, go on, Natalie.
We're very fair here. So as the family has a clear educational goal, right? They want to go to university in the UK or the US, so English language speaking countries. I would recommend that they look into British and American schools offering A-levels or an IB diploma, because in middle school, the costs of switching curriculum become higher. So, for example, I'm just referring to some families who moved to Portugal and would like their children to speak Portuguese. That's great, but it depends what age the child is when he or she arrives. And if you want to go to the university in the UK or the US, it's probably a safer bet to stay in an English-speaking curriculum. Okay,
that's good. And then moving on to the next one, an international family from any given background who wants to settle in Portugal, but wants to keep the doors open for college education in other EU countries.
I would, the only slightly way I disagree with Natalie is I would throw in the IB for the last one as well as a possibility.
Okay.
But I'm definitely going to go for the IB for number 3 as well for this one. I think that just leaves every possible door open to this family. It's just such a broad range, and they can go down whichever route they like as the children grow older. And I would suggest that that's probably the best route for a lot of families is you don't want to decide too early down which path you're going to take your children. You leave as many doors open as late as you possibly can, so you've got choice and you can see which way your children develop as they go through their teens.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. Natalie, do you have anything to say?
I agree with that. The only thing I would add is that, again, my answer would depend on how old the kids are and if they're interested in learning Portuguese. So that's the only thing I would add to that.
Good. So guys, we'll move on now because we've got lots of very interesting questions here. So I would jump to Patricia now. Patricia, in your experience with a client, what do you think are their main considerations when they're looking for a school for their children? Well, you kind of said that in your question earlier.
Yeah, of course. And then kind of just kind of summarize or sums up what, Martin and Nathalie have been saying. there are considerations which usually you want for small children, just find them an environment where they are nurtured, but also that they keep feeling positively challenged and curious, and interested in life and in learning. So any school that can provide that, it's fabulous. And yeah, and then, but do the homework, get help, because our guide is great, but the value of having someone like Nathalie in your corner, or that people just understand even by firsthand, but just also and tries to kind of put yourself in their shoes is super helpful. There are other practical, considerations for some families. It might be important. There is the continuation. There might be schools that might have the kind of bilingual or exposure to a little bit of Portuguese to get a sense of the local culture and feel a little bit more inserted in the community. Geography plays a huge part as well, because when you're deciding to move, the parents might have an idea, and then even though Portugal has 50 plus international schools to accommodate the families coming, a lot of them are concentrated kind of in Lisbon and metropolitan areas, but Porto and the Algarve actually have quite a good distribution of schools and so on. So you just try to match as many things as possible, but if families can, it's great for them to make appointments, come and visit the schools, because a lot of things you only pick up when you're there and you get a sense of the people that will be teaching you, see how happy the children are on the playground. All those things are kind of cues that, I'd say these are the things we looked into when we're picking a school. And sometimes, it goes wrong, but yeah. If you put all those elements together, you'll likely get it right.
Yes, I agree. And then, Patricia, since you mentioned a couple of locations, I will ask our production team to share with us one page from the International School Guide, which highlights the locations. It's basically the map of Portugal there, and then the number of schools. Obviously, not all the schools of Portugal, but the international schools there. And then I'd like to ask Patricia, when clients are searching for property, obviously they go for school catchment area, which are very important. I'd like you to just have a look over this map and point out, which a few areas that you can mention that you could perhaps help our viewers to start their research. If they're coming to Lisbon, perhaps which areas has like the bigger concentration of schools? Would that be central Lisbon or Cascais, Algarve, which seems to be a very popular area as well? So you're able to give us a quick overview on this map?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to be brief. One thing that families will be happy to know, that for international schools, the concept of catchment areas per se do not apply. So obviously you pick a school in an area that is convenient for your, family life, your lifestyle, but you don't have to live within 100 yards from the school. You'll be okay to pick the school that makes sense for you and your family. Again, as you can see, Portugal being a fairly small country, there's quite a bit of choice in terms of school and curriculum. If you select to be in Porto, there are certain areas there, and there's a few schools to pick from. If you look in Lisbon and metropolitan areas, majority of the international schools tend to be just along the coast, if you will, from between Lisbon and Cascais. That's the kind of concentration, but also the distances here are not too great. One thing that you'll find if you live in Lisbon, especially if you're coming from big cities like in the US or even in Europe, if you live in Paris or New York or London or whatever, Washington, life in Lisbon is quite facilitated in terms of, the schools arrange transport. They think, and they're most helpful, even if your kid does after school activities and he goes home with the school transport, they'll make arrangements so all kids can actually enjoy their school life as much as possible. So again, come over, visit, explore the country and see what's right for you. And the school will come. There's plenty of choice in the main areas of the country.
Definitely. Lots of choice here. So we've got now 46 minutes of talk. Great. But now I think we should jump straight to the Q&A. We've got a lot of lots of interesting questions here. More questions coming. Nathalie, I know we were going to talk about your checklist of recommendations, but if we don't talk about it, if we don't have time, don't worry. Our team prepared a couple of social media cards with Nathalie's tips to share, and so I'll speak to Nathalie later to see how we will spread this word around. So now let's start here. So we've answered Augusto. Nathalie, do you also help with schools in Madeira?
Unfortunately, no, not at the moment. No, I'm sticking to mainland Portugal for the moment. But hey, it's a good excuse to go to Madeira on a trip, so I'll have to add that to the repertoire. Azores too. I hear they're fantastic, so definitely want to go there.
Great. Okay, and then how come so many of the international schools are located in Lisbon?
Well, probably because Lisbon being the capital of the country, it's where the greatest influx of expats are landing, basically. So I think it's a situation of supply and demand. Given that most of the expats are here, there are more schools here.
Yes. Let's see here. Where is a list of the schools? Lisbon, and are there any types of rankings across variables, IB, athletics, placement? Moving 2023 with 12-year-old twin boy-girl for their 8th grade. Thanks.
So no, there isn't a ranking published out there. We're lucky to have a list of schools, so that's thankful to that. But yes, that's sort of where I come in and give the color, if you will, on different schools.
Okay.
Can I just say, Jazane, if I can, I would stay very clear, and this is advice to parents, of schools ranking, because you can never find any ranking system that pleases everybody. So for one person, it might be your A level or your IB results. For another person, it might be how well your netball team, football teams are doing. But for the majority of the people, I think it's the ethos, the values, the ambition is something that I'm very, very fond of looking for. Ambition for all ages, all abilities. And that's the only thing that's subjective. It's not objective. You can't measure those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we will aim to answer all the questions here, so we might not be able to do all of them. I've come in late. Have we talked about homeschool options yet?
This forum is not really for homeschooling. Unfortunately, we're just talking about the international schools in Portugal, but there are homeschooling groups out there. And maybe your viewer wants to take a look on Facebook. There are homeschooling groups on Facebook, so that could be a good first place to start.
Can I add
Martin,
Jazine, I don't want to be that person who's always got an opinion, but having led children through the 2 years of COVID and the lockdowns, I think we've learned an awful lot, or it's been a good refresher for why we do education. And I would say, sorry, I didn't catch that lady's name who was talking about
Sarah.
Sarah, there are, of course, circumstances where homeschooling is absolutely the only route you can take. But the interaction that children have with their peers is absolutely vital part of their development. And so having seen children really suffer because they've been isolated over the last couple of years and now flourishing again because they're back into schools, I would, unless you really, really have to, I would question the value of homeschooling from a social point of view. Sorry to sound opinionated, but I feel very strongly about that, having seen the effect it's had on children around the world.
No, absolutely. I think your opinion is very important. That's why you're here. Sorry, I'm just whizzing through because we've got to go through these questions, and there's one that I left for the end. I didn't jump that question. It's just because I think it will take a while to answer that one. Do Waldorf schools K-8th grade have a presence in Portugal? I think they do.
Yes, there is the most popular Waldorf school in the Cascais area is located actually closer to Sintra and Colares, but it is Portuguese language. I don't know of a Waldorf school that is English language based. Most schools that I've seen actually kind of have a mix of pedagogy, so take a bit of Waldorf, a bit of Montessori, a bit of high scope. So those are the English language progressive, if you will, sort of schools for younger children.
Yeah. Okay, and then next here, what's that one? Oh, how is the movement of? I will ask again. How is the movement for bringing international educators that do not hold European passports in comparison to a place like here in Dubai?
That's for you, Martin.
So I think the question, Audrey, you're asking about how do we bring in the best of the world, which is what I was talking about earlier. And it is a lengthy process, and I won't pretend that it's a simple process. But if you want the best educators, then we need to bring them in, and whether they hold a European passport, American passport, or whatever. Portugal has been very, very supportive, as long as we're not taking the place of Portuguese teachers who could do the same job. So I'm very clear that if we want the best, they might live a mile down the road, but they might also live in Sydney or in Outer Mongolia. So we've got to do the best we can to bring them in. And we're working in partnership with a local lawyers firm who have been very good at helping us get through those processes. But you've just got to keep an open mind. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Can I just jump in and say we also will be in a very good position as well to help. Obviously, local lawyers, but there's a number of new visas and a clear message from the government to welcome people from all over the world. Like Martin said, it's not straightforward. There's an immigration process, but there is time. If it's something that people really want to do, and especially if you have the sponsorship of a good school, makes it even easier because you already have, a promissory contract or a job offer, so it helps expedite the visa. But there's a number of people that will be able to kind of help with that.
Thanks, Patricia. That's very good to hear. Can we, so I will, unfortunately, we have to finish because we've been speaking for almost an hour. But I'd like to end with one question here about educational equity. Educational equity is a challenge in the US. How are schools here ensuring that all students' needs are met? Is it for Nathalie, for Martin?
Shall I go first, Nathalie, and then you can fill the holes that I miss. So Gay, I think it's a really important question, and I think the starting point, and perhaps I'm biased, but I think for a new school it's much easier to set the tone right from the word go, so that you don't have any ingrained or sort of traditions. And I feel that I hope in the 2022 we look at every child as an individual, and if we don't have things that stimulate the opportunities that we can offer that child, then we have the sort of staff who say, right, we're going to find what does get that child going. And it might be in the classroom, it might be on stage, it might be on the sports pitches, but it also might be just the way that we wrap them up and look after those children from day to day. So I hope that in 2022 all schools treat every child equally, and long gone are the days where you put the sort of captain of the football team on a pedestal, or the person who is the best guitarist, is the hero, etc. I think lots of schools now, certainly in my experience, look at all children equally, and if we're not finding something that fires their imagination, we should be doing that.
Yes, no, I agree with everything you're saying, Martin. And this is the great thing about how the schools market here has developed so much. There are so many, and it's just really upped everyone's game. And I really feel like Portugal is now attracting schools that are, on par with schools you can find in any other major city in the world.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. Wow, that was I learned a lot today, and sorry, pun intended, because we're talking about schools. But unfortunately, we have to finish. There's one more question here. How do we purchase the Portugal International School Guide? You don't have to purchase it. You just go to our website. It's there. We will share the link later once we publish this video, but our production team is actually sharing with you right now in chat. So you go online and you will be able to see all our guide there. You'll be able to see the checklist of tips from Nathalie that I was not able to ask her during this live, but it's there. And what else? And all the information, you will find information about Lisbon as well. And is there anything else here to add? No, I think we've answered all the questions. Nathalie and Martin and Patricia, thank you very much. I'm really sorry to end this so quickly. I was just looking here to see if I'm missing any other questions because the comments are coming. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching us. And I hope this live has been useful. So, and to help other people who are starting to research about schools, so please hit like, subscribe, and make this video go viral. For information on the guide, you will see the link. It will be published. Tendoria is Nathalie Consultancy Service, and Martin is the principal of the Lisboan, which is opening in September 2023. So if you need more, if you want to ask more questions about them, for them, jot down your questions here, and after we publish the video, we will be able to answer these questions in the comment section. And that's it. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Giovanni.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.